Hello there. So today I'd like to cover the topic of what do you do if someone from the government, an inspector, shows up, whether it's OSHA, FDA, USDA, Homeland Security, even depends on what your business is and what you're doing. And a lot of times you may not even realize that you are on their radar. I recall multiple instances where when I was doing inspections on behalf of the FDA, I'd show up at someone's, we'll say their business location. A lot of times it was someone's home, and they had no idea that they were even subject to inspections. They're like, well, I don't know what this is about. And it turns out they had some cattle out in their back pasture that they ended up selling that made it to market. And so they were marked as the source for food supply, which means they are then subject to be inspected. So we were there to do a BSE. I won't say the long name, but modern vernacular is known as mad cow disease. We were there to do a BSE inspection, which is, to them seemed odd that somebody from the government came to inspect their farming practices. So, regardless of my personal opinion on that type of government reach, whether it's overreach or just normal reach, doesn't matter. That's what it is. So even if you've got some cattle in your back pasture and you happen to sell them to a packer or somebody else, a broker, that it ends up in the food supply, you're subject to being inspected. And a lot of other companies, whether you're making medical devices or things that you may not even consider as a medical device, things that go into the healthcare system. It could be something, it's safety. Even if you have employees other than yourself, things can hit you from the Health and Safety Administration. There's a lot of things that go into it. So there could be times when an inspector shows up and they give you some notice saying, hey, we're going to show up sometime this month or next week, and they'll give you a date at times. They'll let you know, hey, we're going to do an inspection. It could last up to 3 days, 5 days a week, depending on the type of inspection. And other times you could be sitting there minding your own business and they just show up and they'll show you their credentials. They'll show you the paperwork saying, hey, this is the inspection we're here to do. It's an unannounced one. What do you do? Well, there's a couple rules of thumb. The first thing is you always want to ask for their credentials, what they're there for, and what specific inspection they're there to do. So if they do show up, what you do is you say, hey, great, glad you're here, good to see you. Very pleasant with them because you need them to like you, right? It's unfortunate, but you need them to like you. Sometimes you get an inspector who's got a bug up the rear end that wants to make your life difficult, but you put them in a common area. You ask them to go wait in a common area, and they'll want to talk to the person with the most responsibility pertaining to the type of inspection they're doing. So generally that's going to be the owner for a small business. So you'll be in there with the inspector and they're going to start asking you all these questions. They're going to start going down the list. And if it's the first one you've had, most likely there's going to be a lot of things, a laundry list of things that they're going to ask you to do and change. And usually they give you a 15-day period to respond back to them in writing of how you're going to change it. So when they do show up, first thing, kind of the rule of thumb, like same thing if you get pulled over by a police officer and they ask you, do you know why I pulled you over? You always answer, no. Why'd you pull me over? Right? You don't want to incriminate yourself. Not because you want to lie to them, but because you don't want to run the risk of being ignorant of something and then incriminating yourself on another front too. So give them the least amount of stuff. Only give them what they're asking for specifically. So if they come in, they're like, hey, we're here to do this inspection. And they say, hey, I need to see your training documents. And you say, okay, great, which ones? And they'll tell you specifically which ones. And then at that point you say, which dates do you want to see? Or even better, just make it singular. Which date do you want to see? Because the least amount of material that you can give them, the better. Because they're going to keep looking until they find something. And if you don't have it, what they're asking for, say, I don't have that. Do you have anything you can share with me to learn more about what you're looking for? What are you looking for? Let them become a teacher at that point. Because if you're asking questions earnestly, they're a lot more lenient, right? So, and you want to keep them in that common area, away from whatever you're doing. And then, depending on the inspection, they may have to do a tour and see what you do. But I mean, if they're looking at production areas, you don't need to take them into non-production areas, right? So if they start asking to go in areas that are outside the scope of what they're looking at, just ask them, what does that have to do with this specific audit? Is that part of the audit? Because that's all they have access to, is what's pertaining to the audit. So you want to ask just as many questions as they do when they come in. You only want to give them what they ask for. And if they ask a general question or a vague question, ask for clarification always, always, always. If they ask to see something, ask for specific dates and specific documents. And if you don't have it, say, we don't have that. But always follow that up with, do you have anything you can share with me to help me get compliant with that? So, especially if it's your first one. If it's your first one, they're going to love sharing stuff with you. So I would say that if they do show up and they do come to your home, your place of business, wherever it is, and they're asking to do an inspection, the last thing you want to do is tell them no, they can't, and kick them out and make it where they have to come back with a warrant. You don't want that noise. So make sure you get their credentials, make sure you get the forms, that it will specifically say what they're there for, what the scope of their visit is. So take time to read it and go over with them. So if they do ask to go into areas or ask questions or ask to see things that are outside of the scope of that inspection, at that point you can say, that's outside of the scope of this inspection. How does that pertain to it? Because you don't want to give them more material to work with or to search through to try to find something. Not because you want to hide anything, but because you don't want to be incriminated because of ignorance. So take that time to get smarter instead of getting caught not knowing. So that would be my advice. If an inspector does show up, take time on the front end to completely understand what they're there for, why they're there, what's in the scope of that inspection, so that when they do start digging, you're able to push back, respectfully of course, on what they can and shouldn't be seeing. An example would be if they're there for safety. If they're doing an OSHA inspection because of somebody complained saying, hey, this is an unsafe place to work, so they send an inspector out to look at your safety practices. And they're like, well, can I see your, whatever it is, can I see your documentation on quality inspections or customer complaints? The response back would be, that's not in the scope of this inspection. If they're there with the FDA doing some type of manufacturing practice inspection, whether it's with medical devices, food, cosmetics, whatever it is, if they're there doing an inspection over the manufacturing practices, at that point, that would be within the scope of it. But for a safety one, they're going to be looking at safety documentation. They may want to look at some hardware and safety equipment, how you're keeping up with it. They may look at building practices, storage practices, things like that, pertaining to exits and signage and lighting. But they shouldn't go outside of the scope of their inspection. So take time to understand what they're there for. Ask plenty of questions on the front end. And when they start asking questions, if they start asking questions outside of the scope of their inspection, push back, ask questions, protect yourself. Same thing you would do if you get pulled over by a police officer, or a police officer comes, knocks on your door, and asks to come in and look around. You'd ask, what for? What are you there looking for? Because they're going to be searching and looking for something to get you on. Whether they say that or not, that's really what it is. So you don't want to give them so much material to work with, because they're going to find something. They're going to have advice and guidance by the end of it. So give them exactly what they ask for, and only if it's within the scope of the inspection. So until next time, stay classy, ask any questions in the comments below. Any insight, anything that you thought I missed or left out or should have added, please add to the comments, and let's make this a rich and full discussion so we can all get better and smarter.